16-year-old hero lifeguard becomes a national sensation after daring ocean rescue of 10-year-old boy. A dramatic rescue on a California beach has captured the attention of millions after a 16-year-old lifeguard bravely saved a 10-year-old boy from dangerous ocean current. Now let's go beyond the surface and reveal every layer of this story on our AI podcast.
Imagine a perfect summer day at a California beach. You know, you've got the sun, the surf, seagulls in the background.
Sounds pretty ideal.
Right. But, I mean, what makes the ocean so terrifying is that the very water lulling you to sleep can turn into a deadly trap in under 5 seconds.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It's really that illusion of safety that makes the transition to absolute panic so jarring. I mean, people just completely drop their guard.
Yeah, exactly. And that rapid, violent shift is really the foundation of the deep dive we're doing today. Because we're looking at a story that completely took over the internet.
It really did.
We're talking about a 10-year-old boy caught in an incredibly powerful rip current and the 16-year-old lifeguard who risked his own life to go get him.
The source material here is, well, especially the raw video footage, it's incredibly visceral. You are watching a literal life and death struggle unfold in real time.
It's intense. But for you listening right now, our mission today is to go way beyond just recounting a dramatic rescue you might have, like scrolled past on your feed.
Right, there's so much more to it.
Exactly. We're going to break down the anatomical and psychological reality of a split-second heroic decision. We're exploring the incredibly specific athletic background that made this physical feat possible.
Which is fascinating, by the way.
It really is. And we're also unpacking the fascinating and honestly highly ironic ripple effects of modern viral fame.
Because beneath the surface of a heroic viral video, there is this complex intersection of adolescent neurology, specialized physical training, and just the sheer power and complication of modern social media.
Yeah, so well said. So the inciting incident happens in rough surf and turbulent waters. A 10-year-old boy is out swimming and gets caught in a powerful rip current.
Which is terrifying.
And for anyone who hasn't been in one, the real danger of a rip current is how deceptive it is. I mean, it isn't a giant wave crashing down on your head, visibly telegraphing the danger.
No, not at all. It is a localized, powerful channel of water flowing directly away from the shore. To understand why they are so dangerous, you really have to look at the fluid dynamics.
Okay, lay it on us.
So when massive waves push huge volumes of water over an underwater sandbar and toward the beach, well, gravity demands that all of that water return to the sea.
Right, the water essentially has to find an escape route back out.
Exactly. And it finds the path of least resistance, which is usually like a break or a low point in that underwater sandbar.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so all that accumulated water funnels into this narrow gap and shoots back out to the deeper ocean like a high-pressure hose.
That's a scary image.
It is. If you get caught in that channel, it acts like a high-speed treadmill, pulling you away from the shore very rapidly.
And the instinct for a 10-year-old, or frankly, anyone who hasn't been trained, is to fight that treadmill, right?
Absolutely.
They try to swim straight back to the sand, directly against the pressure of that hose, and they exhaust themselves in a matter of minutes.
Which is the worst thing you can do.
Right. So this boy is struggling in this chaotic surf, and panic instantly spreads across the beachgoers. You have this massive crowd of adults watching a tragedy unfold, and they are completely frozen.
What's fascinating here is the psychology of that bystander freeze. It's a classic biological response. Under sudden, immense pressure, the human default is the fight, flight, or freeze response.
And usually it's freeze, right?
Yeah. For an untrained crowd witnessing a drowning, it almost always manifests as freezing.
Okay, let's unpack this. Why do they freeze instead of acting? When those beachgoers see a child going under, their amygdala, which is the brain's alarm system, essentially hijacks their cognitive function.
Amygdala hijack, yes.
It's like a massive traffic jam at a four-way stop. Too many desperate inputs are flooding in at once, so the brain just hits the brakes. It freezes because it doesn't have a clear practice route to take.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. They lack the procedural memory for a water rescue. But then you look at the 16-year-old lifeguard on duty.
The teenager.
Right, the teenager. He bypasses that traffic jam entirely. He dives into the turbulent water, navigates the crashing waves, fights the strong currents, reaches the child, and actually manages to bring him all the way back to shore safely.
And the relief on the beach is just palpable in the reports. I mean, the 10-year-old is actually able to stand on his own shortly after reaching the sand.
Which is incredible.
It is. Paramedics examine him right there on the scene, confirm he hasn't suffered any serious injuries, and he's reunited with his parents.
What a relief.
Totally. One witness quote from the sources really anchors the emotion of that moment. They said, "It was a huge relief to see him standing and recovering so quickly."
It really highlights an incredible psychological contrast. I mean, you have a massive crowd experiencing an amygdala hijack and one 16-year-old whose brain completely bypassed it.
Especially when you consider that a teenager's prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for complex decision-making, risk assessment, regulating emotion, it's still very much under construction.
Very much so.
So how does a 16-year-old override both his own biology and the social contagion of a panicking crowd?
Well, training creates a neural pathway that circumvents the freeze response. When you are trained, you aren't agonizing over a decision in real time.
You're just doing it.
Exactly. You are executing a sequence that you've practiced over and over. He didn't succumb to the panic around him because he relied entirely on his conditioning to cut through the chaos.
And that conditioning was put to the ultimate test in front of a huge audience. And while the crowd was frozen, one specific witness happened to be filming, which altered the entire trajectory of this event.
Right. The photographer, Vander Dussen, he lives just a few blocks away, knows the local lifeguards, and he managed to capture the entire rescue in high definition.
But Van Dussen gives us this detail that completely changes how I view this rescue. This was the teenager's first year on the job.
I know. First year on lifeguard patrol, facing an incredibly hostile ocean environment.
Wait, I have to push back on that. I remember being 16, I was worried about passing a geometry midterm and figuring out who to sit with in the cafeteria.
Yeah, normal teenager stuff.
Right. But more importantly, the sources say his secret weapon is being a water polo player. But come on, being good at throwing a ball in a controlled, chlorinated swimming pool is completely different from facing a drowning child in a deadly ocean rip current. Doesn't the sheer terror of the Pacific Ocean override athletic conditioning from a high school sport?
It's a totally valid distinction to make, but honestly, it significantly underestimates just how grueling water polo actually is.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Vander Dussen himself called the teenager's performance in the water unbelievable, noting it was far beyond what you'd expect for his age. To understand why his pool conditioning held up in the terrifying conditions of the ocean, we really have to look at the physical mechanics of the sport.
Because it's not just swimming laps.
Far from it. Water polo is widely considered one of the most physically demanding sports on Earth. Players are constantly treading water using this highly specialized technique called the egg beater kick.
Okay, what is that?
So instead of kicking up and down, their legs move in alternating circular motions.
Like actual mechanical egg beaters.
Exactly like that. The physics of that continuous alternating motion creates a constant, powerful upward thrust.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it allows a player to keep their entire torso out of the water while maintaining absolute stability so they can throw and block.
That sounds exhausting.
And they are doing this while engaging in aggressive swimming sprints, sudden changes of direction, and extreme physical contact. I mean, people are actively grabbing and pulling them underwater.
And they do all this without ever touching the bottom of the pool.
Never touching the bottom. So their baseline environment is just absolute aquatic chaos. They are acclimatized to lactic acid burning in their muscles and severe oxygen deprivation, all while having to make split-second tactical decisions.
Okay, I see where this is going, which translates perfectly to fighting a rip current.
Think about the physical demands of rescuing a panicked 10-year-old in rough surf. The rescuer needs to keep their head, and the victim's head, above crashing waves.
And that's the egg beater pick providing that continuous upward thrust.
Precisely. They need incredible cardiovascular endurance to swim against the resistance of the ocean. That's the spring conditioning.
Right.
And they need acute spatial awareness to navigate the currents while someone is grabbing at them in a panic. That's the physical contact aspect of the sport.
He basically took the intense, chaotic environment of a water polo match and just applied those exact physical mechanics to a life-and-death struggle in the ocean.
The muscle memory was already there, perfectly primed.
And because Vander Dussen caught this flawless translation of skill on high-quality video, the whole event had the perfect ingredients for modern virality. I mean, you have incredibly high stakes, undeniable heroism, undeniable skill, and a happy ending.
It's the perfect storm for social media. The footage hits and just explodes. We are talking millions of views across multiple platforms almost instantaneously.
And that virality isn't just a numbers game, you know. It translates into massive real-world praise. Viewers are flooding the comments, calling him a hero who saved a life, commending his courage and calm response.
Which is well-deserved.
Completely. But here's where it gets really interesting. This massive digital adulation creates a profound real-world problem the very next day.
Oh, this part is wild.
The teen goes back to work. He climbs up into his lifeguard tower, ready to guard the beach, and he physically cannot do his job.
Because the internet had tracked him down to his specific tower.
Yes. Crowds of visitors kept approaching him while he was on duty. They wanted to offer congratulations, thank him for his service, ask for selfies.
Just swarming him.
It got so disruptive that beach officials literally had to reassign him and take him off duty. Let that sink in. Society loved this hero so much that our collective desire to thank a lifeguard literally prevented him from guarding lives. The irony is staggering.
It really is a profound illustration of the modern phenomenon of the overnight celebrity. If you look historically at how local heroism was treated, a lifeguard might get their picture in the local town newspaper.
For virtue.
Exactly. People might shake his hand if they recognize him at the grocery store a week later. It was a slow, manageable integration of praise that didn't fundamentally disrupt his daily life.
The physical infrastructure of a community could handle a newspaper article.
But today, localized bravery is rapidly consumed by the internet. The digital world collides with the physical world instantly.
It's instantaneous.
The scale and speed of modern virality transform a working teenager into a local tourist attraction in a matter of hours. The intention of the public is entirely positive. I mean, they want to express gratitude. But the functional result is that they neutralize the very asset they were praising.
It's like the internet doesn't just want to watch the hero, it wants to consume the hero. People develop this parasocial relationship because they watched a terrifying, intimate moment on their personal devices, and now they want a piece of the story for their own social media feeds, to prove they were adjacent to the viral moment.
They turned a critical public safety worker into a celebrity, rendering him unable to perform the safety work. It exposes how completely ill-equipped our physical spaces, like a working public beach tower, are to handle the sudden influx of attention that comes with viral internet fame.
The irony of him being benched by local fans is just wild, but that digital footprint didn't stay local. The momentum escalated all the way to the highest levels of the federal government.
Taking this from a localized viral video to a formalized national event.
Right. And just a quick note for you listening. As always, we are simply reporting the facts directly from the source material here. We are not endorsing any political viewpoints, but following the widespread attention, President Donald Trump announced that this teenager would be invited to the White House in recognition of his bravery.
A huge deal.
Yeah, according to a post Trump made on Truth Social, he wrote, "We're going to bring this heroic young man and his family into the White House with perhaps the boy he saved to give him a high civilian honor. Very brave, he deserves it."
An invitation of that magnitude fundamentally shifts the narrative. A statement from a former or current president elevates the story from a fleeting internet trend to a recognized piece of national news.
Right, it cements it.
It formalizes the heroism on a national stage.
It brings an even greater flood of national attention praising his selfless actions. But amidst all of this, the millions of views, the crowds on the beach, the White House invitation, I really want to pivot back to Vander Dussen, the photographer who initiated this whole media cycle.
Good point.
Because his perspective on this massive attention is incredibly grounding. He said he is simply glad the near tragedy has a positive spin.
He is looking past the celebrity aspect and focusing entirely on the utility of the event itself.
So what does this all mean for you and me? How do we connect the extreme highs of a White House invitation back to the reality of basic beach safety?
That's the real question.
Vander Dussen points out that this event is serving as a powerful reminder of the critical role lifeguards play. It's renewing awareness about the hidden dangers of rip currents, and it is emphasizing the absolute necessity of following beach safety warnings.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it really challenges how we view public safety communication. Think about the physical infrastructure of beach safety. You have warning signs planted in the sand that say, warning, rip currents, or swim near a lifeguard.
People walk right past them without a second thought. They are static. They just become background noise.
Exactly. But a single, highly visible visceral event captured on video, showing the actual fluid dynamics of that rip current and the agonizing physical toll of escaping it, does more to educate the public than 1,000 metal signs stuck in the sand.
Oh, absolutely.
It forces a conversation about ocean safety in households that might be planning a beach vacation weeks or months from now.
It's the difference between being told the stove is hot and watching someone actually touch the hot stove.
That is a great analogy.
The video bridges that gap. It creates an emotional connection to the risk because you actually see the water moving, you see the sudden panic, you see how incredibly fast it happens. It takes a terrifying near miss and weaponizes it for public good.
Weaponizing it for public good is a brilliant way to frame it. The social media ecosystem is often criticized for its superficiality, for people just, chasing selfies with a lifeguard.
Right, which we literally just saw.
Exactly. But in instances like this, it simultaneously acts as a massive organic amplifier for a crucial public safety lesson. It highlights the invisible mechanics of a rip current in a way a static diagram simply cannot.
So to wrap this deep dive up, we are looking at a story where the absolute worst-case scenario was on the table. A 10-year-old boy caught in a deadly, high-pressure channel of water.
Seconds away from tragedy.
But because of his 16-year-old's courage, his incredibly specific physical conditioning from water polo, and his neural training to bypass panic and act without hesitation, a potential heartbreak was transformed.
It really was.
It became an inspiring story of hope that is literally being celebrated across the nation, all the way to the White House.
It is a powerful testament to the value of specialized training and the profound rippling impact one individual can have in a moment of crisis.
But before we go, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, something that builds on everything we've talked about from the sources. We know he is just 16 years old.
Still a kid.
We know this is his very first year on patrol, and we know he is now an overnight celebrity fielding a White House invitation. What is the psychological weight of all of that?
Carrying that mantle is a heavy burden for an adolescent.
How does a teenager process peaking as a national symbol of heroism during his very first summer job? I mean, when the crowds finally leave the beach, when the viral spotlight inevitably fades and the internet moves on to the next big thing, how does a 16-year-old just go back to being a normal high schooler?
It's a lot to ask.
It's something to think about the next time you are sitting on a California beach, smelling the salt air and watching those seemingly peaceful waves roll in.
Okay, one question for you. Do you think 16 years old is too young to handle life or death emergencies? Or does this incredible rescue prove that proper training, discipline, and courage can prepare teenagers to perform extraordinary acts under extreme pressure? Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.